Hello, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Startup Standup with me, Tarang. In this episode, I'm going to talk about the good side as well as the bad side of startup ecosystem or startup culture in India. So, basically, in good side, I'm going to talk about the potential of India to make its own Silicon Valley. And in bad side, I'm going to talk about the things that I believe are holding back India to have its own Silicon Valley. So let's first start with the good side. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi once said, "We have a million problems, but at the same time, we have over a billion minds." If you look at the list of 20 decacorns all around the world, you see that there is one Indian company, which is 197 Communication at 7th place with valuation of over 16 billion USDs. And if you look at the list of unicorns around the world, we have Indian companies like Oyo Rooms and Byju's with valuation of over 10 billion US dollars. Now for your information, let me tell you, Unicorn is a startup company which is valued over 1 billion US dollars. And Decacorn is a word used for those companies which have valuation of over 10 billion US dollars. But now let's talk about the only Decacorn of India, 197 Communication. Now you all must be familiar with the money transaction application Paytm. This company is owned by 197 Communication. Paytm was first launched in August 2010 by Vijay Shekhar Sharma. Started as an online mobile recharge and bill payment platform, Paytm now enables its users to make almost every kind of transaction on a click of a button. And now Paytm has also brought a paradigm shift in the retail industry by completely transforming the payment technology. And I believe that the growth of this company will be exponential in few years. Because after this corona situation, most of the people will prefer e-commerce payment system rather doing transaction through hard money or cash payment. Now let's look at the potential of India to create more successful startups like these. Today, India is among the top 5 economies in the world and also the fastest growing economy in the world right now. And at the 5th place after US, China, Japan and Germany. So you can see that the scenario or the setting of the country's economy has completely changed. And thus, we are no longer a developing country with slow rate of development. And you can even sense that development by just looking at the fact that today India is at the 3rd position in the list of countries by GDP on the basis of PPP, which is Purchase Power Parity. But now if you want to know a particular domain with most opportunities to grow, then unfortunately or fortunately, there is no such domain. And it's really amazing to see that today value is being created across all the verticals. If you look at the list of unicorns around the world, we have some Indian companies like First Cry, which offers baby products, or CureFit, which is a holistic healthcare platform, or Car Dekho, which is an automobile website, and many more. But now look at the fact that increasingly India is becoming a global destination for the world's top companies to come and invest. But the question is, why are they investing in India? They are investing in India to tap into the huge consumer base and to gain market share. Today everyone is on smartphone and using internet in India. And that is the reason behind the success of some mobile application like PUBG and TikTok. India has accounted for 44% of 2019 total TikTok app downloads. So you can see that China has understood that there is value in having influence on the minds and spending habits of young people all over the world, and especially in India. And that's exactly how Indian companies should think as well. And for that matter, here is a beautiful quote by Charles Darwin. He said, "It's not the strongest of the species that survive, not the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change." So at last, I just want to say that it's not too late to enter the game. There are endless possibilities for a startup to grow in this country. You just have to take that first step. And now I'm going to talk about the bad side, or the things which I believe are holding back India to have its own Silicon Valley. So here I've listed out 4 points on the basis of both my knowledge and researches. And I'm going to discuss them one by one. So the first point is bad at making institution. Now, have you ever thought why America has become the most preferred destination for most of the brilliant minds in India over the last 2 decades? So once I was watching a lecture on YouTube given by famous American Indian writer, economist and philosophist Mr. Rajiv Malhotra. And I came across a very insightful thing that he mentioned during the lecture. He said that the biggest weakness of Indians is that they are bad at making institution. They really don't know how to institutionalize. And that's exactly the thing which Americans had figured out in the early 90s. They thought that if you would give them money and all the required facilities, it would certainly be beneficial for us. And that's exactly what's happening right now. So that's why I believe that this is one of the reasons behind the failure of India in being able to create more successful startups. And keep in mind that here I'm not talking about educational institution, though that is also one of the reasons. But here I'm talking about the action of coming together and creating something. Because though Indians are great as individuals, but not so much as a group. Now the second point is higher education system. India's higher education system has always been considered as a bad education system. But what are the flaws in our education system? So in this point, I will only discuss 3 flaws which I believe are affecting the startup culture and also restricting the Indian students to go and explore other career options like entrepreneurships besides those conventional ones. So the first flaw is conventional theoretical approach. In India, most of the universities just focuses on the theoretical part of study. Mr. T.V. Mohandas Pai, Padma Shri awardee, current chairman of Manipal Global Education and former director of Infosys, say that the biggest flaw in education system is that today's colleges in India are using content of 19th century, architecture of 90th century and methodology of 20th century to teach the students of 21st century. If you look at some of the best universities in the world like Harvard and Stanford, today they are focusing more on skill development rather on completion of theoretical part. Take Stanford as an example, which has long been known as one of the world's leading center for innovation and a breeding ground for entrepreneurs. In the learning pattern of Stanford, they have 40% case study, 25% projects, 20% lectures, and 15% learning. Unlike Indian universities, where their major focus is on lectures. Now the second flaw is industry academic gap. It is the gap between the education system and the industry's expectation from entry-level students. Today, the growing concern in India is that there is a shortage of candidates with right skill sets who can fill up those roles in industry. SOCHM's reports say that 93% of MBA graduates are either unemployed or underemployed in India. Today, the basic problem in India is not unemployment, but severe underemployment. And now the third and the last flaw is incompetent faculty. There is a huge rise in number of incompetent teachers in Indian colleges and universities. Let's take engineering colleges in India as an example. All engineering students will agree that more than 60% of present-day engineering faculties do not have proper grip over the subject they are teaching. And thus, these meaningless lectures of such faculty killed the joy of learning in students. The fact that these 60% faculties themselves were taught by similar unqualified teachers is the prime reason for the failure. And thus, this vicious cycle of unskilled teachers is creating technically incompetent engineers year by year. So these were 3 flaws in India's higher education system. Now let's look at the third point, which is lack of good consulting firms for startups. Although there are many consulting firms for big companies, but there are no such firms for small businesses. And thus I believe this is one of the reasons why most of the startups in India fail. And finally, the fourth point and the last point, it is mentality of Indian entrepreneurs. To be successful, a startup must be innovative. But unfortunately, most of the Indian entrepreneurs are less innovative. And in reality, most of them are just copying what has already been successful elsewhere. So these were the 2 sides of the startup culture in India that I've discussed in this episode. At last, I just want to share a beautiful quote of Abraham Lincoln. He said, "We can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or rejoice because thorn bushes have roses." In the case of this quote, do you see a thorn bush or a rose bush? Either way, there are rose and thorns. So remember, success starts in your head. What you decide to see matters and shapes your perspective. And it's your perspective which determines how you act or respond to challenges. Thank you for listening this podcast till the end. I hope you liked this episode. So if you liked it, then do follow my podcast and make sure to share it with everyone you know. And if you have any questions to ask or suggestions to give, you can send me your voice message using voice message button on Anchor, or directly message me on my Instagram, Facebook or Twitter accounts. I would love to take up some of your questions related to startups and businesses in my upcoming episodes. Till then, stay hungry, stay foolish, take care.